Hi guys, this is Angela from the London App Brewery, and I'm here to bring you another episode on how to make apps with no programming experience. In today's episode, we are going to talk about methods and functions. So these two words you often hear intermingled. So people sometimes use them interchangeably, although they are distinct entities. So what exactly are methods or functions? They are essentially just a set of instructions. So just as you would use a set of instructions to make soup or make cake, methods and functions are ways of listing your instructions for the app to perform. And all of those instructions then become enclosed inside a particular method or a function, and then you can call the name of the function in order to trigger the whole set of instructions. So let's take a look at this in our code. So looking at the existing code in our Dice app, you can see that there are a couple of methods and functions being used. So firstly, what is the difference between a method and a function? Essentially, methods are associated with objects, whereas functions are standalone sets of instructions that you can call from anywhere. So, for example, the arc for random uniform is a function. So you can use this bit of code anywhere, in the app delegate and view controller, in any bit of code you like, as long as you've imported the UIKit framework, which contains the instruction. So this is only the name for the set of instructions, but inside the library there is a whole expanded set of instructions. So what are methods then? So methods are, for example, we've got a couple here. We've got view did load is a method, did receive memory warning is a method, roll button pressed is a method, and they are denoted by the func keyword that precedes them. So whenever you write func, you are declaring a method or a function. Right, so let's explore this in a bit more detail inside Playground. So I've opened up a new playground and I've basically deleted everything other than the import UIKit framework line. And you can either type along with me or you can just watch as I am going to demonstrate. So here is a function. So let's declare a new function. We'll use the func keyword, func a function. So that's going to be the name of the function. Open and close parentheses, and then open and close brackets. So this is a function, and what should our instruction be? So we'll tell this function to basically just print hello. So whenever we call a function, it will print hello. And let's now create a method. So methods are associated with objects. So if you have a look inside our Dice app, you can see that all of these functions are actually contained within the class view controller. And the way that you can tell it's contained is because that there is a open bracket and there is a close bracket. Now, when you double click on the close bracket or the open bracket, it highlights and shows you everything that is contained within. So this is everything that is contained within the view controller class. Now, when we show this on screen, when we load up a new view controller, it will be an object. The class is merely a blueprint, and when that class blueprint gets made into a real thing, it is an object. So let's go ahead and make a new class. So let's say class, and we'll call it my class. And we're going to ignore the superclass part, and inside I'm just going to create a method with, again, the func keyword, and it's going to be called a method. So this is going to be the name of our method, and open close parentheses and open close brackets. So this method is going to print goodbye instead. There we go. That's that. So that is contained within my class, whereas this function is freely floating around. So the difference is that I can go ahead and call a function anywhere I like. So I can just go ahead and you can see that it's highlighting right here. And if I pop up the debug, then you can see hello being printed because I am calling a function. So if I get rid of that, then there is of course nothing. But if I do call a function, then there it is printed. It goes ahead and runs the instructions that are contained within the two brackets, which in this case is print the words hello. But if I try to do the same for a method, if I try and do this and call it in the same way, nothing happens. In fact, it will give me an error because a method is not a function, it is a method. And the way that we call methods is very different because a method is always associated with an object. So in order to create this object, I have to make a new object from my class. So let's show you what I mean. So I'm going to use the let keyword. Let my new object equal my class. So essentially this line is taking my class, the blueprint, and making a new version of it called my new object. And now I can call the method within the method that's available to objects of this class by saying my new object dot a method. And there you go. You should have hello and goodbye printed. So hello is from calling a function and goodbye is calling a method. Now, classes and objects can be a little bit confusing. We're going to go into it in even more detail when we use it properly in later tutorials as we create our own classes, as we create our own objects. But functions and methods are essentially very similar, so they are just a set of instructions, but their use case are different. So now for both of these things, so either functions or methods, they can either return nothing, as is in this case, or they can return something. So to denote the return type, so you go ahead and make a little arrow with the dash and the angled bracket, and then you can write a type such as string, so print hello, or you can do return hello, and that is essentially the same. So when you call a function, it will return the words hello, and there it is. So if we change that to a Boolean, then it will need to return true or false. So return true, and we can say something like if a function equals true, then print it was true. So here it goes ahead, runs the function, a function, and returns true, and then checks the value of the return against what we've specified. And then if it was true, then it would print it was true. But say if we return false here, then nothing would happen because it would not equal true, so this print statement is not triggered. Now, you can see these parentheses, and they are for putting things inside your set of instructions. So, for example, if I had a function that takes a parameter, I don't know, my age, and it is of type integer, and then it returns a false. So what if we make the method check my age? If my age is, I don't know, greater than 21, then return false, else return true. So, actually, let's do it this way. So if I am greater than 21, return true, otherwise return false. So this function could be, I don't know, check can by liquor. So now if we go ahead and call this check can buy liquor function and type in our customer's age, say they were 18, then it would return false. So they would not be able to buy the liquor. So this is a very simple way of using parameters, and you can put in more than one parameter. So my name, which is of type string, and etc. etc. So finally, let's go and apply that knowledge inside our app building. So now we've got an IB action here that gets triggered whenever the roll button gets pressed, but we don't want to put our code in there. So I'm going to make a new method. Remember, methods reside within classes. So let's use the func keyword, and it's going to be called change dice face. And it's not going to take anything and open and close brackets. Now remember that the open and close brackets are very, very important. This is where bugs start to occur. And very, very often the problem that you will have is that you might have opened a bracket but you haven't closed it, or you might have opened two, you might have only closed one. A really easy and quick way of checking this is just by going left and right on the closing bracket, and it will highlight the opening bracket. And just make sure that every closing bracket highlights an open bracket, and it's highlighting one that makes sense. So for example, inside roll button press function, we open the bracket, we give it the instruction print roll button was pressed, we use a closing bracket to denote that that is the end of that method. And equally here, we're opening a bracket and closing a bracket. So our instruction goes in here, and when we call change dice face, everything inside these two brackets will be executed. Now there is always a last closing bracket, and that is for the class. It is to close off the entire class of the view controller here. So make sure that there is always one there. So our function is called change dice face. And what we're going to do is we're basically going to make a first random index. So this is a constant, and we can let that equal to cast integer using arc for random, uniform, and we're going to put in 6 because we want a number between 0 and 5. And I'm just going to close off that brace, and then we're going to make another one called second random index, and again cast it to an integer, and then use arc for random uniform 6 to generate a second random index. And remember that there cannot be any spaces. So another thing that Swift is very picky about is that all its operands, so its equals, its plus, its minus, must have a space between it and anything else. So if I go ahead and do this, then it will complain, and there we go. So make sure that you don't have anything that looks like that. Okay, great. So now we've got our two random indices, and we're going to use those to pull out a random dice image. So we're going to go for dice image view 1, which is of course the picture frame to the left. And we're going to pick out its image property, and we're going to set it to an UI image. User interface image named dice array. So this is our array of image names, and we're going to use the first random index to pick out the first random image. And we're going to again do the same for the second image view. So that's the one on the right. And again, just go tab, 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 or enter, enter, enter to get Xcode to enter it automatically for you. Xcode can be a bit slow sometimes with the suggestions, but after 3 letters, it tends to know what you're trying to say. There we go. So now every single time this method is called, change dice face, it will make make two random numbers and then assign a random image to dice image view 1 and dice image view 2. Now that just by making that method is not enough. We have to call it in order to use the set of instructions at the appropriate time. Now, when is the appropriate time? So when the view is first loaded, when the app first starts up, we want them to show a new set of dice faces. So you can see that this set of instructions is very similar to this set. In fact, it does exactly the same thing. So we want to operate with the dry principle, so do not repeat yourself, and we want to get rid of all of those lines of code, and we're going to instead just call our change dice face method. Now this way you can use this set of instructions in many places without having to type it out every single time. So when the view is loaded, we're going to change dice face, and also when the roll button is pressed, we are going to change dice face. So now let's go ahead and run this and see what happens. Right, so the first time it's loaded, it's run calling change dice face, and if we press the roll button, we would expect everything in between these two pairs of brackets to execute. So first it would print this, and then it would call change dice face, in which case the app jumps over to here and then runs all of this. So let's go ahead and press that. There we go, it's changing the face, and there you go. You have a brand new Las Vegas dice app. So now you can settle scores with anybody right from your pocket. Right, so that is a brief overview of methods and functions. Fear not, we will be using methods and functions many times over in the future episodes. You will eventually get the hang of them if you do not already. And we will also be looking at classes and objects, and after using them, writing them several times, you will eventually get what is the difference, when I would use them, and why the hell we use all of this anyways. But I hope this episode has been instructive and you've learned something about writing sets of instructions to tell the computer what to do. In the next episode, we are going to use a recipe to get the hardware, so our iPhone, to detect when a user is shaking the phone, and upon finishing shaking, we are going to change the dice face, i.e. call our newly made method. So I cannot wait for that, and I hope that you will join us in the next lesson. And remember to subscribe to the channel and have a great time. All right, see you soon.